Hello everybody, welcome back to my Intro to Programming video series. This is video number 5, and today is a very special day. We are going to be programming our very first small text-based video game. It's going to be a simple guessing game, kind of like a game you might have played in grade school. The computer is going to pick a number, a random number between 1 and 10, and then the player will have to guess which number the computer is thinking of. I've already made a new project called Intro to Programming 5. It's a Windows console application, just like the other ones we've made. I feel like you guys can make your own project now, so go ahead and do that. And we're going to combine basically all of the concepts we've learned so far to make this game. We're going to need if statements, and we're going to need loops, and we're going to need some variables. So let's go ahead and jump in here. And let's start basic by displaying some text to the screen that says I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. What is it? So we need a way to generate a random number for the computer to store. So we need to define some variables that let us do this. We need a way to create a random number, and then we'll store it in an int. But to generate a random number, we're going to have to make an instance of a class. And we haven't talked about classes before, so let's talk about them real fast. I have a definition here. A class is a template used for creating objects. Classes have variables and functions inside of them that we can call. An easy metaphor for all of you gamers out there is, in a video game, all the people that you see running around in the game and the character you play as, they are all classes. Underneath in the code for these games, there are classes that have been defined for the players, for the enemies, for the weapons, and inside of that class there's all different types of things. Every player in a game has a position, so you would have a variable storing that, and maybe you have some functions called move player that lets the player move. We won't be making a new class today, but we will be using a class called random. And random has a bunch of functions inside of it that generate a number and returns it to us for use. So let's go ahead and create a new instance of random. Let's say random, that's the name of the class that we're using, and then we need to name it something. I say let's just name it lowercase random. That's easy enough. And remember earlier I said classes are templates for objects. A template by itself is nothing. We need to actually create a new instance of an object using this template. So random equals new random. And that creates a new instance of random that we can use and access. Because we're using the random class or template, our object that we have made has all of the functions and variables inside of random that we can use. So now we can create a new int called random number, and we can set it to random dot next. And see all of these, IntelliSense shows us all of the functions that we can use in this class. But next is the one we need. So next, open parentheses, and then you can use the arrow keys up and down to see the different types of parameters we can pass into this function. Let's use the third one that comes up. This returns a random int that is within a specified range. It looks like the first parameter is asking for the minimum value, and the second parameter is the maximum value. So this is the range that we want the number to be in. Remember earlier, I said we need these numbers to be between 1 and 10. So let's do that. We can pass in 1, comma, and I know the natural reaction is that you want to type in 10 for the max value, But the way this function actually works is that it returns 1 less than whatever you type in for that. So if we typed in 10, we would actually get a number range from 1 to 9. And there's a reason they programmed it like that, but it's not relevant right now. So let's just, with that fact in mind, let's type in 11 so we get the range of 1 through 10. So let's do semicolon after that. And then the next variable we need is an int called guess. And this will store whatever the player has guessed for the number. So the computer will say, hey, what number am I thinking of? The player will type something in, and whatever is typed in will be stored inside this variable. Now we need another int called number of guesses. So I'd like to give the player 3 guesses. After the 3 guesses, the game is over. You can give the player however many you think is appropriate, but I think more than 3 starts to be a little much, so I'm going to pick 3. And finally, last but not least, we need a new type of variable called a bool, and we're going to call this bool game over. And booleans are super easy to understand. They are either true or false. So game over can be true or game over can be false. And that's the only type of data that's allowed inside of a bool. So for as long as the game is not over, we will keep looping through a bunch of code that plays our game. And as soon as the game is over, so as soon as game over equals true, we'll exit our game loop and close the program. Alright? So let's go down here after the right line. And in the last video, we used for loops, and that was a way of repeating a bunch of lines of code. This next thing we're going to use is very similar to a for loop. It's called a while loop. And these are easier to use than the for loops because you only have to put one thing inside of the parentheses. So I'm going to say while game over equals false, curly bracket, and this loop will run forever basically until game over is equal to true. So technically we could even say while true, and if we put this here, this loop would never end, but we don't want to do that, right? We'll say while game over equals false, run the game. When game over is equal to true, exit the while loop, and then we'll exit our program. So first things first, let's take the input from the player, just like we did in the last few videos. The computer will say, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. What is it? The player will type in a guess, and we need to store that guess. So let's do that now. Guess equals convert.toInt32, because remember we have to convert the string just like last time. And then we'll pass in console.readline, open close parentheses, semicolon. And remember that we only allow 3 guesses in this game, so after we take a guess from the player, we should subtract our number of guesses. We start off with 3, and eventually when the number of guesses is 0, the game will be over. So we can subtract using number of guesses minus minus, and then we need to actually detect when the number of guesses is 0 so we can say that the game is over. So let's use a handy dandy if statement. If guess is not equal to random number, and this is a new operator we haven't used before. This just checks to see if 2 things are not equal to each other. It's an exclamation mark and an equal sign put together. And then we need to say if the guess is not equal to random number and our number of guesses is equal to 0. And this is also a new concept. When you type 2 ands like this, you can string together 2 checks in one if statement. So to execute this if statement, both things need to be true. The guess needs to not be equal to the random number the computer is thinking of, and our number of guesses needs to be 0. Okay? let's go ahead and add our curly brackets, beginning and ending. And this if statement will be executed if we have lost the game. So we need to write a nasty message. Let's say, right line, quotation mark, wow. 3 guesses, and you can't figure it out. You lose. But remember that even if this executes, we'll still be in the while loop because the game over hasn't been set to true yet. So let's do that. Game over equals true. And now the while loop will be exited. But we need to take care of the other cases in our game. And let's take care of the case next if the player actually guesses the correct number. So let's say else if guess equals random number, curly brackets. Now we can display a positive message. Let's say console.writeLine. That's it. You win. At this point, the game is also over, so we'll say game over equals true. And finally, we need to take care of the cases where we still have some guesses left, but we did not pick the correct number. So let's do a couple more else if. Let's say else if guess is greater than the random number, we'll say console, right line, nope, my number is smaller than that. And notice that I did not use curly brackets here, and that's because whenever you're writing if statements, if you just have one line of code that's inside of the if statement, you can just do it like this. However, if there's more than one line that needs to be in the if statement, you have to use the curly brackets like up here. So that's just personal preference. You can use curly brackets if there's just one line inside of it, but I think it looks a little cleaner to not use them all the time. And finally, we need to take care of the last case. If the guess is less than the random number, we'll say console, right line, nope, my number is greater than that. So that way, the computer is giving little hints to try and, get us in the right direction, get us a little closer to the number as we make our final 2 guesses. So, just to recap really fast, this loop will go on forever until the game is over. If we've ran out of guesses and we have not picked the correct number, the game is over. If we pick the correct number, we win and the game is over. Otherwise, if the guess we make is greater than the number that the computer is thinking of, the computer tells us to guess a little smaller. Otherwise, if the guess we make is smaller than the number the computer is thinking of, the computer tells us that we need to pick a greater number. So we're missing one other thing. Outside of the while loop, let's wait for one more input. We'll say read line. That way the application doesn't immediately exit. And let's go ahead and run this thing and see what happens. I pressed F5. Alright, so our program has started. I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. What is it? I'm going to say 5. Nope, my number is greater than that. I'm going to say 8. Oh, so it's either 9 or 10. I have one more guess. I'm going to say 9. Oh, whew. I actually thought I was going to lose, and that would be embarrassing. Alright, I win. I'm going to press enter one more time. Exit the program. So that's basically it. I'm going to let you guys play around with it and see if all the other cases work. They should. I'm pretty sure they will. I want to show you one other thing, and that is earlier we used this and sign to string together two different cases that we're checking for. But there's another operator we can use where we can say or. So let me give you an example. Here in this first else if, we say guess equals random number, and then if it is the random number, we win. But we can put a little cheat code in here, and if our number is a certain cheat code number, we can just automatically win. So let's do that. If guess is equal to random number, or guess is equal to 1337, we will win. So either there's two ways we can win now. Either we can have the guess be 1337, or the guess can be the correct random number. Either one, this or that. So let's try that and see if it works. I'm going to hit F5. I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. What is it? 1337. That's it. You win. Yeah. Woo. Exit. Alright guys. Congratulations on making your first small little text game. I actually quite enjoyed that. That was pretty fun. And I will see you guys on the next episode.